We've had fun with research methodology. The research methodology that we've adopted has to do with both taking municipal data and also community data, which has been so interesting because often they're at odds with each other, looking from two different perspectives at the same situation. So the municipal data was gathered through key informant interviews with municipal officials and also any different water service providers. And the community data was gathered through participatory workshops that are largely based on participatory rural appraisal methods drawn from that, but not holding to it 100%, just drawing on it. And those have been largely 2 to 3 day processes. So in 4 different communities in each area, we had participatory workshops where we gathered that data to complement and test the municipal data. So it's been drawing the two together and saying, now where are we left now that we have the municipal data and the participatory data? How do they come together and what does that mean? And then after the fact, as we did it, we realized we need some financial expertise in some of these areas. So we've drawn in financial experts to go and look at balance sheets and to talk to CFOs about what the situation is in those municipalities. So the final reports take those 3 different sources and integrate those into one report. Then the last part of the methodology is really that going back to the working group and saying this is largely the data we found with a little bit of analysis, but you as the working group, you stakeholders, you need to be the ones to come up with the real discussion and analysis of these cases. How do you make sense of this? What does this mean for sort of the bigger picture? So it's not fair, it wouldn't be fair to reflect it as only a researcher-driven or a research-driven process, because the outcome of the research is both the research but also the dialogue. So the whole issue about local dialogues was that we actually had a budget for civil society engagement, and it wasn't really clear what we were going to do with that. And from my previous work as a researcher, I feel very strongly that you don't go and do research and you're extractive about findings and just take from the community, that you have to give something back, whether that's just telling people what your findings are or helping them to take that next step to what to do with the findings. So I proposed to the working group that we think about dialogue just not as a national process but also as a local process, and suggested this, what I called local dialogue. So we formulated a strategy where it sort of unfolded, where we would have feedbacks in each of the 4 communities where we did the participatory research, telling them about our findings and asking them to send representatives to a local dialogue where they would sit with the municipality and any additional water service providers and discuss the issues that came up in their local area, discuss whether our research findings got it right, we've accurately reflected it. And then also moving on to the next stage of an action plan of, well, so what? Water Dialogues found this. What does this mean for your local area? Because that sort of trickle-down idea that we're going to have a national dialogue that might influence policy, that might somehow magically change policy and affect local people's lives, seemed a bit far-fetched for what we could offer people. The selection of the case studies was really important to stakeholders, because depending on which case study you choose, they were concerned they'd find that either public was great and private was bad, or vice versa. So everyone was very concerned about choosing case studies in a fair way. So what we ended up doing was we ended up trying to map out between public all the way to private and all the gray areas in between, what different types of institutional approaches there are, and examples of each one. So the easy ones are the extremes, the public and the private. So we have a private concession, Olembe, and we have public provision in terms of Ugu and Bushbuck Ridge. And then the gray areas in between include the management contract, which is really sort of a public-private, both Johannesburg and Maluti Upper, and CBO provision in the form of Chris Hani, and then an outsourced sanitation case in the city of Cape Town.